Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Central Hounslow Area Forum. Just begin with, there's no apologies for absences that have been received, but I think there are a few apologies for lateness due to the minor communication discrepancy, which we apologize for. Any declaration of interest or any other communication for members? Yeah. Moving on to the agenda item number 2. The minutes of the meeting held on 29th of June 2023, are they all approved? Yep, all agreed. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3, which is the local policing and community safety update, for which we have Sergeant Rams Randawa and Matt Duncan. If they could present their report. If you want to head up to the little podium over there. Oh, there's a podium over there. Yeah.
Don't stop. Can you hear me okay on here? Fine. So yeah, obviously I've been here previously. I'm one of 3 sergeants on the town centre team. Obviously currently we've got Inspector Khan there, and we have about 12 constables across 3 teams. We have quite good coverage. We're not getting abstracted as much on the town centre. In terms of some of the issues that we have, obviously there's some people drinking by the Holy Trinity Church. We enforce that with the PSPOs. We're currently getting community behaviour orders, CBOs, the previous ASBOs they used to call them, for some of the problem people that we have on the high street. And yeah, generally our numbers are starting to increase. We're getting more in terms of numbers coming into the town centre team and to Safer Neighbourhoods. There's another sergeant here from the Safer Neighbourhood teams for Hounslow. So that's starting to increase in terms of numbers, which was a worry previously, I think, and some of the concerns that we had previously. So, again, some of our priorities that we've mentioned, obviously we've got VORG, so violence against women and girls. One of the initiatives that we're working on in relation to that is Ask Angela, which we're trying to go sort of increase in terms of the shops along the high street. So currently Ask Angela is an initiative where we work with licensed premises. So the Bell Public House, I think you've got the George or Moon Under the Water and a few other places in Hounslow, but we're trying to increase the Ask Angela initiative, where a female, if is in distress and she's in a bar or in a licensed premises, she can go to the counter or to the bar area and speak to staff and ask for Angela. And they have a trigger plan where they safeguard females, basically women and girls. And we want to do that for shops along the high street, McDonald's, places like that. So we're working on that at present. Beggars seem to have died down from what I've seen. Obviously, potentially that is going to be changing in terms of as the weather cools down. I've touched on sort of the drunks on Hounslow High Street, theft, pickpockets. Again, we continue to work on with plainclothes operations that we do. ASB, drugs and violence. We have, again, that is something that we're probably never going to get rid of in its entirety, but we try our best to stop and search people in the area for drugs. If we can do warrants, work with our Safer Neighbourhood colleagues to do that. And yeah, youth engagement, we work with the Loft, which is in the town centre, the Treaty Centre, which is a youth working programme. There's a diversion project, which some of the Hounslow Council are on board with. And that is basically troubled youth in the area, working with them, having open and honest conversations with them, their parents, and youth workers in terms of how we can improve as the police and sort of what works for them, and just having feedback between both. But that in its entirety is probably the town centre team. I don't want to go on too long, but if there is any sort of questions for me.
Yeah. I think we're going to, before we start asking questions and I open the open forum, you can all have opportunity to ask a question in a minute. We just wanted to give you some good news. For once, there was a petition that was requesting CCTV on Cambridge Close in Hounslow. That petition has been approved, and the camera has gone up for anyone that lives on Cambridge Close. Just thought I'd slip that in before we move to the open forum. I'm going to give the councillors the opportunity to ask questions first, and then I'll move to the public. Yeah, Councillor Chowdhury.
Hi, just a very, very obvious one. Ask Angela, good you're getting in touch with businesses. How are you promoting it to the public that this is what they should go and ask or say?
Yeah, this is something we're looking at. So the initial stage is working with the high street in terms of the businesses, in terms of is it something they're aware of, and then it is women and girls. We need to make them aware of the actual initiative. So if they are in a sort of a mode of distress, so we're looking at leaflets, but we want to go to schools and do events as such where we can kind of like obviously spread the word. But the initial thing is with the businesses is trying to get them on board. Again, social media, things along those lines. So we are looking at that aspect of it to kind of get it out there. But Brodie, who works on the Safer Neighbourhood team, she's quite on board with that. And this pilot is being run in terms of Hillingdon and Ealing as well. So we're all sort of working together as a team to kind of get that out there. But yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation and the report I've seen. Just a quick question. Currently, there is a tension within my ward with one of the incident. I know you're doing everything, and you've taken the initiative about the Angela you've explained. What other measures have you taken for community to be feeling safe? And especially the contact details wise after the incident, who they can contact and what support they are getting from, please.
In terms of the incident, sorry, is there anything that can give me an inkling into what the incident is, just so I kind of roughly know? Because there's a few. Is this in the town centre? Is it, or is it?
No. That was within my ward. A gentleman got robbed and sold.
Oh right, yeah, okay. So I'm part of the Met Police Sikh Association, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I went to. So firstly, I was on rest days, but I emailed the Sikh Association for the Met, which is officers of all ranks across the country, really. I think it, and basically said we need to do something in relation to this. So I went to Martindale, Gurdwara and Hibernia Road, so Alice Way, Gurdwara, to speak to obviously the people there. I've spoken to the officer investigating the crime as well as their supervisor to make sure we're working on this case expeditiously. We've identified who these people are. It's just in relation to now going through the process of the criminal justice system to sort of bring them to justice, so the community is aware of that. And again, we're updating the community as to what is going on with this. So yeah, the reassurance is I'm visiting them personally. Again, we had Lunga in the Gurdwara, we're part of the community ultimately. So I know previously it's seen as, it's them and us, but for us, we're trying to break these barriers down with communities. So yeah, just visiting, being open and honest, and trying to get that message out there that we are doing and arresting people that are going to commit crime on our wards. So.
Right, thank you. Another following on from this one, thank you very much for what you're doing. But when it comes to informing the local councillors, do you leave that to our officers to do that? Because we have PCSO, and normally when he needs any help, I make sure that I get the things done.
Yeah.
But on this incident, as a ward councillor, I did not receive. I actually emailed the police team, and I didn't get any reply back. But I'm really thankful to our team in LBH who have informed us and gave the information. But is there anything you do to contact the ward councillors to let them know what's happening or what you are doing as a team with LBH?
Yeah, I can give you like our team's email address if you want, and I can take yours down. I haven't got that personally, just so we can kind of, let you know. Because again, that was quite an impactful incident. It was on social media and it affected a lot of Sikh people across the country, really. And ultimately, I think a press release of sorts has gone out, so people are putting on social media that the police are doing something about it. We are arresting people and we're bringing people to justice. But we can share email addresses just to make sure that we're both, or the information sharing is going on, so you can let people know that you're aware of things, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, but I think it's really, really important if we just start highlighting it, the ward councillors as much as important then, because the community's first contact, obviously, after the police, it is the ward councillors, and it's nice if we hear something from the police to say that this is what we are doing for community, or this is what has happened. I'll appreciate that, but I will exchange my email address with you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor.
Right, so, sorry, just,
Go on.
okay.
Yeah, go on.
Hello, guys. So as some of you might be aware of, obviously within the police, we've got a specialist unit. So obviously with the incident that the councillor is referring to, it would have been taken on by a specialist unit. And these units don't always pass down these information to us officers on SNT. So sometimes it might be a day or two before we're actually aware of the situation ourselves. But what we're going to do is we're going to send out an email to these specialist units and tell them that when serious incidents like this do happen, they need to get in contact with us ASAP so that we can then pass that information on to the councillors. So that's something we'll do going forward now, is we'll make sure that as soon as serious incidents occur, they get in contact with us and you guys directly straight away. All right?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say that as Cabinet Member for Safety and Regulatory Services, I should have been notified, and I haven't heard at all anything from anyone. If you can take this as a complaint back, though I will be talking to the Commander, Sean Wilson, about it, because we have to be notified about such a serious incident. And even if it's not serious, we need to know what's going on so that we can inform the residents. So please take that back as a formal complaint from
No,
the Cabinet
I'll
Member
take
for
this
Safety.
down because, again, myself and Jonathan are first line managers. We're both sergeants, basically. Obviously, there's a rank structure that goes through to Mr. Wilson. So if you look at it, you've got an inspector, chief inspector, superintendent. So we are out on the ground, sort of doing the management of, stop and searches, that kind of stuff. Obviously, senior officers are probably going to, or there should be some form of, link between the councillors and police. Like that should go without saying, and there should be that information sharing. So. I'll send that back, and then hopefully someone should be able to contact you in relation to that.
Thank you.
No worries.
I know the ranks, but just making you aware.
No.
that,
I totally get it, and we'll feed it
up.
up the chain so they're aware. Because, like I said, really it should be probably coming from that level to,
Yeah, not the other way around.
No,
Thanks.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Kiani.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask that, we have this agenda pack. There's a crime statistics for each ward. And I can see this is up to the June, and we are in September. So why can't we have the up-to-date statistics every for a meeting,
For the town centre, the last ones that were put onto this were what came up on the system. So when I run a search, these are the dates that it would go up to. So again, hopefully it should update for the next set when we come through. It will probably be in arrears to a certain degree, but
it is useful if we have the current information in hand, because this is June, and I'm only concerning, this is only concerning my ward, so I can say in Hounslow Heath, crimes are gone up, and here is showing down. So we don't have the current report. I can't comment on that. So if we have the current report, then we can discuss it further, isn't it?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that going forward as well.
Thank you.
Also, so I'm Sergeant Mafemi. I'm the new sergeant for Hounslow Heath and Hounslow West, which some of you might be residents of. Sergeant Rams deals with the town centre, so obviously he's got a different area to look after. But yeah, what you said is completely correct. You're right. What's the point in looking at data that happened a few months ago, right? You want the most current one. The way it works is we need to request it to the specialist unit, and they then give us the data. But going forward, I'll make sure that we have at least a more updated one. I'll take that one.
Councillor Bhatti.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask Sergeant Randhawa to explain what happens when somebody walks into the Bell Pub or Moon Under the Sun? What's the process? They got direct contact with the police, or how do they contact you? How do they assure somebody who is obviously worried or concerned about something? Can you explain that a bit more, please?
Is that in relation to Ask Angela, is it? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. So the way it works is basically for example, if there was a couple, a male and a female on a date, and they go into a licensed premises, and the female doesn't feel safe, or is concerned, alarm bells are ringing, she would go to the bar and speak to staff and say, I want to speak to Angela. That should then set a trigger plan for the staff there to safeguard that female. So maybe take them to a side room, speak to them, ask them what the issue is, and decide whether it is a police matter or whether it is something where they can just call a taxi or a family member or someone to come and collect them. That is basically the basic premise of what it is. So yeah, it's not too complex as such, which is why I think it's something that, if rolled out correctly, will kind of go a long way, I think.
So this is at the early stage, and you're going to set up a lot of these places all around the high street?
Yeah, basically. So Ask Angela I think has been around for a little while, but it's just something that, again, we are going to monitor. So what we're doing is working with Hillingdon and Ealing is every sort of quarter test the licensed premises just to make sure that they are doing what we've trained them to do or what they have had training on. So I was talking to one of the sergeants from Hillingdon today, and we're going to supply officers to each other. So we'll have officers go into these premises and ask them for Angela and see what they do right and what they do wrong, and then they just get debriefed on it. So just to keep that consistency and improvement, that they are kind of taking it on board. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
I'm going to take 2 more questions from the council, then I'm going to open it to the public. Just Councillor Grower.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a comment. So a lot of questions been asked already.
Yeah, no worries.
There was a question last time from the residents about the police presence in the high street. Mm-hmm. That's my ward. I've seen some improvement. I go there quite often. But have you got a capacity to increase it a little bit more to deter pickpocketing and other things happening in the high street?
Yeah, so again, we did have 21 constables. At the minute we have 12, although that may change soon because there is a shift in terms of numbers coming. So there's a review high up in the police in terms of superintendent level and above, where they're reviewing resources across Hounslow, Hillingdon and Ealing. So if there are units which they feel can be disbanded, they will bolster safer neighbourhood teams, and that includes the town centre. So hopefully, I know Jonathan's teams will be expanded, and I believe we're next in line for that. So there is some capacity, but I think they've started with safer neighbourhood teams first, and then they will come to town centre after. So I'm hoping next time we have this meeting, we'll have some good news for you. But at the minute, there's 12 constables across 3 teams. 2 of the teams have 3 officers each, and then the other has 6. So there's a slight imbalance there. So sometimes on certain days you may see some. The high street's quite big. If you get an arrest or they're in a shop dealing with a shoplifter, that kind of thing. So, but yeah. No worries.
Thank you. Councillor Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to repeat what Councillor Girwal has already said, but it's just to add on to that. I believe a few months back, beginning of the year, the commander himself stated that as we realised that there's a shortage of police patrolling, and not just that, and that the primary reason for that was lack of police in general. So I understand that we've dropped from 2 to 3 police officers within a ward to about 1. So in a recent, the question would be, when is there a timeline? Because I understand at the beginning of the year they were expecting it to be end of July, so a month or so back. There would be an increase in police numbers, and secondly, and particularly in the Hounslow West area where I'm a councillor, there's been a high there's been a lot of presence of drugs-related incidents, and even around the Beavers Park area. So, I mean, each time I've contacted a single officer, his response has been it's either not safe for him single-handedly to attend a particular area, or he's just too busy to attend all the hotspots. So when do you expect there to be sufficient numbers? So
the superintendent and the chief superintendent have looked into this matter, and they've come up with a plan which has been implemented immediately. So as of now, every ward has at least 2 DWOs as dedicated ward officers, and they will have 1 PCSO as well. So you have 2 DWOs and 1 PCSO. So how that came about was that they disbanded, like Sergeant Ram said, they disbanded they reduced the numbers of other officers in other areas, like LBH and NTT, Neighborhood Tasking Team, and they moved those officers to cover the vacancies in the wards. So now, Hounslow West, so we've got the Hounslow West, one of the PCs here, but every ward will have 2 DWOs and 1 PCSO, and that's basically immediately. So some of them started last week, and the rest of them are going to start next week, but they're officially DWOs basically as of now.
So just a follow-up, quick one, Chair. Is there a particular route they follow, or how often is the patrolling taking place?
Cool.
Because there's always, I mean, doesn't matter how much patrolling takes place, but residents always deem to assume that there isn't enough patrolling, which I believe is correct. So is there a particular route they follow? Or
so that is such a big, massive question, because the ward is big, right? And you can patrol a certain area 1,000 times, but if you're not there when you're needed, then as far as the residents are concerned, you're never there, right? Because when I looked outside the window, you were not there. So obviously, it's very hard to always be there when people are expecting us to be there in terms of visibility. But the way it works is that we have hotspots. So Hounslow West is, like you said, though, there's a lot of drug issues in that area. And it's also crossing over to Hounslow Heath because they border each other. So the high crime, high risk areas are predominantly the first areas that are being patrolled, because those are the areas that have the most issues. So Tivoli Road is one of the examples, Martindale Road, that's where we're seeing a lot of the issues, so that's where we target our patrols. The ward officers also have other, so they don't just deal with patrols. Obviously, we have crime reports to investigate. We have antisocial behavior, so airspaces we need to investigate. So where like there's neighbor disputes or other issues they need to deal with, they still have to do those as well as the patrolling. So obviously you have the deterrent factor, is trying to patrol, keep the drug dealers away, but also going to people's houses and deal with the issues that are going on within the houses as well. But to answer your question, the patrols happen where the hotspots are. That's where we try to be the most visible. So another initiative that we've started recently is having a targeted patrolling car. So basically, so for example, if you're a dedicated ward officer, we have a shift pattern, right? So if you're a dedicated ward officer who's off duty, there might not be a police officer on your ward that's tasked with patrolling that ward. Obviously, you have a response team, but your ward officer will not be in. But in order to combat that, what we're doing is the targeted patrolling car. So that car will cover all the wards, right? But specifically the hotspots. So those areas that have major concerns. So the plan is to have that vehicle patrol that area 7 days a week. So there will always be some sort of policing presence in that area. That's the plan. And it started last week. So it started this week, Monday. So far we've tried it for a few days and it's going well. And the plan is to carry on with this. The issue that we're having, the thing that's causing us the most problem is trying to get vehicles. So it makes no point patrolling in an unmarked car because we've got an unmarked car now. So residents look outside the window, they see an unmarked car. As far as they're concerned, the police isn't there, right? Because you can't tell it's police. So we're trying to get marked vehicles, and what we're doing as well is driving to the locations, coming out of the vehicle, patrolling around. It would be better if we had the marked vehicle because then we can go have a bigger presence. So that's what we're trying to work on now, get a vehicle, a marked vehicle, and then that way we can do more locations, more times, more often, and increase our presence.
Thank you, officer.
Thank you. I'm going to take one last question from Councillor Saeed, and then I'm going to open it to the public.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to extend apologies on behalf of Councillor Mia and myself. We were with some residents in Hounslow East, and obviously we were delayed. It's just actually a comment. I obviously come in at the tail end of the conversation, but you were just talking about the Ask Angela. I've been to quite a few restaurants and pubs in Ealing, for example, and they're always, that sign is there in the ladies' toilets. And, when you hear people talking about the initiative, it seems to have worked really well. So sounds really good.
Cheers.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to add to that as well, I don't know if any of you are subscribed to the OWL system, but basically, I think the council asked about how we're going to get that information out there, and that's one way we can do, is send it out on OWL so people are aware of it. So if you're an OWL. Good job. Yeah, so if everyone subscribes to OWL, that's how we can push out these messages and inform people that these initiatives actually exist. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, you can directly report things on the app. I think there's a facility on there.
I'm not sure if that necessarily works. Because
in my case,
I don't know if it actually goes to where it's supposed to go. So in terms of getting information to us, I'll recommend 101 as the best port of call. Another thing I'll say is as well, we've got Twitter, right? So if you guys use Twitter, I would recommend following us on Twitter, because then we can push that information out there, make you aware of the initiatives. Because if no one knows of the initiatives, then it's not really useful.
And just going off what Jonathan's just said there, Twitter, again, we've spoken to a lot of our teams in trying to promote what we do on Twitter, because otherwise it feels like, what are the police doing? So if you follow the Hounslow Central and Town Centre teams, and I think that's linked to the Hounslow Twitter page, it will show like patrols, you know, in certain areas, and then it kind of, that visibility, if you don't see the officers on that day and think they're not patrolling, they have been patrolling, and it shows that. So,
can I just further add that with the Ask Angela, I've got 3 daughters, 2 of which use buses frequently within the area, and they occasionally get approached in a not a particularly nice manner. But how does that apply if they're travelling on a bus within the network?
it's obviously we have a safer transport team, but we could work alongside them. Again, my initial rollout for Hounslow anyway, in terms of the town centre, was the shops, but it's potentially something that could be a trigger plan for bus drivers, that sort of thing. This is why we were trying to expand it. It was solely for licensed premises, but I think the benefits would be for anywhere really. If a female comes up and asks for Angela and just needs that little bit of help, you don't really know that her circumstances, and if it was a bus driver, that was her only opportunity. I think we're missing out there. So yeah, it's something we can look at, and again, we can note down and go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just, before I open it to the public, I just want to remind members that we've also got a representative from Lime Bikes. So if you have any question on Lime Bikes, you can ask that now. And can I also just remind everyone that all questions must come through the chair. So if you can just put your hand up in an orderly fashion, and I'll get to everyone. I think the gentleman in the back there, yeah, I'll go to you first, and then we'll move on shortly.
First of all, officers, thanks for all you do for the community. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Most of the crimes committed in Hounslow are male on male. I totally agree with Angela. I've seen it myself. But what do you do about the stabbings and the beatings of male on male?
Yeah, so a lot of the violence that we get, what I find for the town centre anyway, there's a lot of youth violence. So knife crime, youth violence is massive in the whole of the Met, the whole of London. So we are doing initiatives where we're doing diversion work. There's a thing called Can You Challenge, which is run by the council, is council-led, but there's 2 guys that basically do football sessions for youths that are in the area that have come from underprivileged backgrounds, that could potentially be vulnerable to being exposed to drugs, selling drugs, and then ultimately knife crime. So they're giving them life coaching. And then again, we're working with youth workers that go to schools such as Prus.
But I'm sorry, officer, but these ain't youths.
Yeah.
These are adults. These are grown men stabbing each other and beating each other up. You do get the youths doing it.
But, as in, you mean in terms of drug dealers across Hounslow? Or?
Hounslow West and Hounslow Central. Hounslow West is a no-go area for the evening, as you probably know, and so is Hounslow East, Hounslow Central. It's a no-go area because you're taking your life in your hands going there at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so ultimately we've got the tactic of stop and search. That is always there and that is available. So, for example, if you feel that there is someone that may have a knife on them, or so if you're talking about stabbings, that sort of stuff, people fighting, you can call us and we will go and investigate. And if a stop and search is appropriate, we will do that. In terms of those are our preventative measures in terms of that. Again, if there is a long-going issue, you can speak to Safer Neighbourhood, send us an email. The town centre is exactly the same, and we will deal with it appropriately. If you have any intelligence at all, so generally all of this crime comes from drugs. It fuels a lot of this. Email us, go through Crime Stoppers, whatever it may be. If you want to remain anonymous, you can do, and we'll act on the intelligence that we get. We do warrants. We can, although we have low resources, we can get resources from elsewhere to do these warrants, but we need the intelligence to go and do those. So that's kind of the battle against drugs. Drugs will always be there in some capacity, and I will be open and honest about that, but we try our best, and we have to work with the community to kind of do that. If you call us, we will deal with it again, they're graded in terms of priority. So if there's a fight in the street, we'll go to it. So yeah.
Can I make one other point, quick point as well? You talked about Twitter and online. There's a lot of older people here that haven't got that facility, and a lot of older people here, especially in the residential, the sheltered accommodation, where you've got gangs of youths hovering around outside. They've got no way of getting in touch with you or nothing like that. They can't go on Twitter, and it's not Twitter, by the way, it's X, right? But they're not on anything like that. And, you know, to see a community support officer even walking around the estates every now and then, but you never see them. You don't see, in my road, when the community support officers first came out, you'd see them every day walking around the street. Now they're in cars, so you never see them.
Jonathan's team has no cars. That is like a...
Oh, right, fine. Sorry, Jonathan, but
you've touched
the one I see, the two I see the other day were in a car.
Oh, right.
All right, okay.
So the reason why the vehicles are beneficial is because if there's only so much you can walk, right? You might walk down, 2, 3, 4 roads in a day, because the road is massive. But if you're able to drive, you can cover more ground, right?
But when they're driving, they ain't seeing what's going on around the corners. They're not seeing what's going on down alleys when they're driving. If they're walking, they'll see it.
If they're walking, they wouldn't even get that far.
Come on.
Well,
now.
so what's the best way to basically target people like you then to pass information to you? What would you recommend?
To me?
Yeah.
I'm on OWL and I'm on Hounslow Police site and I'm on I'm a neighbour watch coordinator, so it's quite easy.
So with regards to the driving, the plan is not just to drive around, just so you guys are aware. The plan is to drive to the location, right? So we have officers based at Hounslow, and they've got to get to Brentford. That could be an hour on the bus, an hour back. They could walk around for an hour, but that would be 4 or 5 streets. So in terms of getting the most bang for our buck, what we do is drive to those locations, get out the vehicle, patrol those hotspots like I mentioned, and maybe drive to the next location. If they walked to those locations, they won't be able to cover as much ground.
But we did used to have our own PCSOs. We had 4 around Hounslow West.
And now there's 1.
There's 1. But we had our own, we all knew him, we all spoke to him.
Yeah.
Right? And there was a lady as well, so there was 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they walked the streets every day.
Yeah.
But now we never see them. Anyway, that's my point. All right, so.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman right next to him, on the left.
Right, I'm particularly concerned about the policing, but especially the enforcement on the Hounslow High Street and the gateway to Hounslow High Street, which is Bell Square. I'm witnessing now on a daily basis groups of people, not necessarily youths, but groups of people smoking drugs, drinking and playing loud music out of their Wi-Fis. The other day, I watched as one of the enforcement team danced along with these people, and then she didn't enforce anything to stop the antisocial behaviour. She walked off. They were still smoking drugs, they were still drinking out their cans and leaving their litter, and they were still playing unbearable music out of their Wi-Fi. Now, there needs to be something done on that square. It's got nothing to do with the pub. It's to do with the dare I say, riffraff on that square, because that's what I class them as.
In relation to the enforcement officers, we are trying to work with them at the minute. So PC Joseph Hennessy, the last couple of days, I think he was meant to be out of them today, but they got abstracted, is trying to do some sort of joint operation where we go out together, because there was a slight issue, I think, with the enforcement agents where, people weren't giving over details, etc., and then they needed us. But when they put a phone call in to 101, by the time, it was so delayed. So we're trying to do more joint operations with them where they feel a bit protected. Because again, going into dealing with some of these drunk people, smoking drugs, selling drugs, it can be quite hostile for them. They have no protective equipment, and I think they'd get quite a bit of reassurance out of us. So we are going to try and do some joint stuff, because I think they can help us with some of the drunks by the Holy Trinity Church. You also get displacement with that, because we move them from there. They then end up at the top end of the high street by the Bell. So I'll take that point on board. again, some of them keep coming back, the hot weather, and we do enforce the PSPO, the Public Spaces Protection Order, on the high street. There is signage for it. So, yeah, I don't know about that specific enforcement agent, dancing with them or what have you, but it's something that we can take back to them when we do our joint ops.
Video.
Say again?
I have video.
Oh, right, okay. Well, again, if it was one of my officers, I know what I'd be saying to them, but yeah. It's something we can feed back to them when we do our joint operations with them.
Thank you. There's a lady in the back row on the right. Just on the far right. Can we try to limit questions just to one so everyone can get an opportunity, please? Thank you. Can you turn your mic on, please? Sorry. Can our officer help?
Whilst we're waiting, one thing I'll say is I've got a list of all the ward email addresses. So if you want to email your specific ward, which will basically go to your ward officers, I can give you guys that information at some point. I'll have a think what the best way is to send that information out. I might send it out through Al, or if anyone wants to know it directly, I can speak to them, or I'll think of a way to get out basically. But I've got that information, and that's the email address that you guys can email and contact your ward officers for any updates.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. The main reason I'm here is we have a safety issue in our community. We live in Warwick Road, which is in the TW4 area. It could be classed as Hounslow West, I'm not sure. But since 2021, I've been trying to report antisocial behaviour by groups of youths in their car pulling into our cul-de-sac. All hours of the night, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, drugs, loud music, shouting, littering. Littering is a big issue as well. What they're doing is they're ordering takeaways by using our addresses to get delivered, and then they leave their litter everywhere. They're using legal highs because there's bottles of cough mixture all over the place. There's also empty gas canisters. This has been since 2021. It's an issue I've reported to the council, and also we've had promises of CCTVs. The litter has not been cleared, in my knowledge, for about 3 weeks now. It's just left to just blow around all over the place. As I say, these empty glass bottles are broken, children can't play, and it's very threatening because obviously you go out to try and speak to them and they just give you a lot of abuse. So obviously I'm getting older now and I can't be dealing with this. As I say, this has been since 2021. It's now become important for my neighbours and myself to actually look out at night to report to each other that there is a car there again. And we are then having to call. We shouldn't have to come, as I say, it shouldn't have had to come to this. It should have been dealt with by now. And what can we do as a community to try and stop this behaviour, apart from keep calling 101 every time we see these cars in the cul-de-sac?
Yeah, again, safer neighbourhood, like in terms of that aspect of it, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, they won't probably be on duty for that. But my thoughts are, if we can get the registrations for the vehicles,
I have that.
And have you emailed like the safer neighbourhood teams at all, maybe with them?
Well, obviously we've been phoning and the council as well, especially about the litter issues with the parks and.
So what happens is with 101, it goes through, obviously there's lots of calls. So like, for example, for Hounslow at the minute, there may be 40 outstanding calls at the minute. And if you call 101, a call gets added to that list and they prioritise them. So you can imagine immediate calls are going to be, someone's been stabbed or things along those lines. And then that call will pop on the list. But out of those 40 calls, you kind of are then assessing where it would kind of rank on there. Yeah. If you get the registrations for the vehicles and then email the safer neighbourhood team for that area. So
can we come and get that from you when we've
that's fine. Yeah. And then just email all of the registrations. We can then do checks on those, work out where these people live, and then kind of say to them, please don't come back here because it's antisocial behaviour, you know, Section 59 warnings for their vehicles, that sort of stuff, and kind of maybe enforce a bit, if that makes sense. The 101 system is good, and if there are officers available to come and deal with that, they will come and deal with it. But I'm just conscious that if you call, you want a service, and sometimes when it is busy, and sometimes a lot of the times it is busy, you might not get an immediate response, and an hour or two later, once they've gone, you'll then have an officer drive past and go, there's no one here, and then you're not getting what you need.
Unfortunately, we're in an area of low visibility because for some reason there's bushes, there's hedges, you can't see. If you drive along Green Lane, you can't see us.
Okay.
So on that note, actually, there's a thing called Street Safe. I was speaking to our safer coordinator, Matt, and I think that's one thing he's recommended to the residents in the past. So there are things like lighting issues and hedges that need to be trimmed in terms of if it's causing a safety issues. If you go on the council website, I think it's called Street Safe. Is that correct, Matt? Street Safe? Police Safe. Okay, cool. Yeah, and you can report stuff like that, we can then tackle that issue. Regarding the litter, if you go to Fix My Street to report any litter that needs to be cleaned up, that's one way to go about it.
Okay, well, so Safe holding up everybody else, so can I come talk to you afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I think there's a lady at the front here in the second row with her hand up. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. As you mentioned that you have a high presence in a high street and Hounslow West, what are you doing about the beggars? Because they spread their legs and people are tripping over. I have seen the blind man literally was going to go fall flat on his face. And there are so many people out there, even the police people are passing through, but they are not even removing them. And that is counted as antisocial behavior. The same happens there in a Hounslow West. Beggars literally follow you. Sometimes they are literally trying to grab you just to ask for the money, and they are spreading around everywhere. The footpath in Hounslow West is quite narrow, and people can't even walk around.
Yeah.
So this is a nuisance. It's like everyday's event, especially at weekend, it's a lot more. So can you please address the issue? Thank you.
No worries. So yeah, in terms of beggars, again, I think this was brought up previously. We hand out CPWs, they're called, they're warnings basically for antisocial behaviour. So they are regularly dished out. And if they offend again, so that same person, then they get a CPN. And then if that's enforced and they do it again, then they can be arrested and things along those lines. Yeah. Yeah, I think I know who you mean. I think there is a CPN for him, but that's what we normally do for them.
I have not seen anybody removing him all these years, and I'm talking about not 1 or 2 years, I'm talking about a few years now down the line. So what have you done about that?
He does get regularly moved on. I know who you're talking about. Has he got like a white beard and white hair? Is he?
So you know the gentleman I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, and I know for a fact that he's on a benefit.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, he should be, that sometimes the way he walks, he has his blanket spread around and everything else.
Yeah.
There is a blind man who walks around most of the time whenever I have seen him, and he struggles.
Yeah.
And it's just not fair on him because he has equal rights, same like everybody else.
No, I totally get where you're coming from. There's things called community behaviour orders as well. So we're currently working on those for some of our violent offenders that we have on the high street that commit robberies, that sort of stuff. They can be quite protracted in terms of to do those. They're almost like projects on an individual. Someone like him, in terms of that list, probably sits, again, lower on that scale. It's something we can work towards once we get through our case file of who we've actually got at the minute. But in terms of him, he gets moved on or he's given ASB warnings as such. So I think once we're done with our violent offenders, giving them community behaviour orders, there is potential and scope for him to get one. Again, I can feed that back to my team, but we're conscious of how many resources we've got as well, because these projects take officers off the street.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's kind of a balancing act, and then there's calls coming out as well. So shoplifters and fights, etc. So we're trying to. It's a balancing act in terms of our resourcing. I don't want to be. Not honest with you, if that makes sense. A lot of this is balancing priorities and resourcing and things along those lines. So
I acknowledge that you are trying to protect the rest of the community, but at the same time, that blind man has equal right to walk there safely, the same way like everybody else does. So he has a right to be protected too.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. But yeah, he's been worked on, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
Again.
Okay, can we move on, please? There's a young lady on the front row, please.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I came slightly late, so apologies, but I'm really, really grateful to everyone who supported the Cambridge Close residents in respect of the CCTV and the petition that we put forward. Just to the officer's point, we were really frustrated with the activity, the drug dealing that we saw, but you have to persevere. So the lady talking about Warwick Road or what have you, we can speak to you about what we did in respect of working with the officers, because it's correct, they really do need intelligence, they really do need to build a picture and a profile of the activity that's going on in the area to basically take it back internally to their upline and to make it stand up and build a case on their side to support the activity within the community. So you have to persevere and be resilient. It's frustrating, but once we understood the challenges that the police were facing, and not just like, oh, we always call and we never get through, they don't do anything for us, blah, blah, blah. Once we really understood the challenges and how we could benefit from working together, we really did yield the correct results that we have seen, obviously, in the line 4 item of this agenda. So thank you very much. Secondly, very quickly, before I hand the mic over to someone else, what we're noticing in the area now, so Cambridge Road, that adjoins Wellington Road North, there's a lot of abandoned vehicles being parked on the side of one side of the street. How do we know they're abandoned? Because the windows are smashed in, there are PCNs on there, several of them. Not pointing fingers, but I'm presuming it's to do with the auto shop that is nearby. There are children that frequent or use the roads there, and there's broken glass everywhere. So that's a danger, if you will, or a health and safety situation. It causes trouble in respect of drivers using the road because it's a two-way road, if you will. It's not a one-way, so there's cars coming and going, and you really can't even pull in to let your oncoming vehicle go past. I am quite happy to disclose that I reported it on Fix My Street or whatever the thing is, and got something back from Hounslow Highways, the kind of kickback notification that what makes you think it's abandoned, what are the registrations, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, if you've got residents engaging and trying to flag issues, having to do all that kind of inane paper pushing and why this, why that, and a third, is quite frustrating, and you don't want to engender apathy amongst residents. Meanwhile, there are other residents who, before me, have flagged the same issue. So I don't know what the officers, it might not be your patch to be fair, but obviously these abandoned vehicles are coming from somewhere and they need to be addressed because it's taking up space for residents to park. And also it's a danger in terms of the children, just glass everywhere, it makes the area look trashy as well. And if it is that business that is contributing to that, then trading standards or whichever team covers that kind of jurisdiction, that area, needs to be obviously on the case as well. So I just wanted to flag that, and I don't know if anyone else understands or has seen what I'm talking about, but it really is a persistent issue that it's just not sustainable. It can't just be left to be carrying on. So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take one final question from the lady in the front row, and then we'll move on.
Good evening. I just want to point out to the police people at the end of where the Cromwell Road and Grove Road meet, there is always secondary school children arguing, and of the shops, always fights. They prepare their fights and everything. If some of you can go there about 3:30 and 4 sometime, that will help those youngsters not to carry on with their fight. And second is, Hibernia Road has become a no-go area since that stabbing or whatever that happened to this young man. I am, especially on the wheelchair, totally scared to go there because I live nearby on the this one near the pub. So please, if somebody can do something, because there was again stabbing before that on Hibernia Road as well, a while ago.
Yeah, so that location has been added to one of our tasking areas. So we have increased our police patrols in that area just to try and reassure the people who do live there. And that's, I think, the way that we can try and make you feel safer.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on from the open forum, I think we've got the parking team here for the CPZ arrangements in the Central Hounslow ward. So we can call Jacqueline Joseph and Ami Hosseini to address this issue.
So if I interject one quickly before people start leaving, just the email addresses for your wards. So if you type in the ward name at met.police.uk. So for example, Hounslow Heath at met.police.uk or Hounslow West at met.police.uk. That would that's the email box for your ward officer. So that will get passed to the dedicated ward officer, who will then read that email. But I do urge you, if you are reporting crime and you need police attendance, call 101 or 999 because that mailbox might not be checked for a few days. But if it's low-level issues that you're having, ASB issues that you want us to attend, then you can use that mailbox. But if it's some sort of crime or more serious ASB issues, call 101, please.
Just before I go, again, for the councillors, I'll speak to our Chief Inspector and Superintendent. I'll email them personally, just because, again, I totally agree with what you're saying. You should be made aware of stuff. And again, in my opinion, it should be at maybe that sort of high level where it's, that information sharing is going on, because they get made aware of these incidents quite quickly. And then there should be some sort of trigger, like an email going between yourselves, just so you're being reassured, and then you can let the community know. I wasn't aware that wasn't going on, so I'll go back to them just to make sure that they know that it's an issue for yourselves and that needs to be repaired.
Sorry, just to respond to that. They normally do. They are very good, but this time somehow they've missed us.
Missed it. All right, no worries.
Thank you. If you can have a round of applause for the officers. Thank you very much for attending. Moving on to agenda item number 6. Mr. If you can move on to the Central Hounslow parking and CPZ arrangements.
Can I quickly say a couple of things about that? Parking? Sorry? Can I say a couple of things about the parking?
Yeah.
Okay, before Jacqueline starts, sorry. Yeah. Just to put you in a picture, Jacqueline, there are issues in Hounslow Central Ward going on for the last 2 or 3 years. The zone is too big. People from, say, Spring Grove Road can come and park on Alexander Road, Queens Road, and when we done 2 surveys already. When we done a survey, obviously those people are not interested in making a small zone or extend the hours. So the real issues are make a small zone near the high street on both sides and extend the hours. That would help definitely. So you can do a presentation now.
So thank you very much for inviting us to your forum today. I'm Jacqueline Joseph. I'm the head of parking and customer engagement, and this is my colleague.
My name is Amir Hosseini, team leader parking management.
So Amir's team is responsible ultimately for undertaking the consultations and implementing the schemes right across the borough. And I just want to talk a little bit about the history, first of all, before we go into the specific concerns that you have. So originally this was introduced in 1995, and then there was a further consultation that was undertaken in 2018 just to establish the thoughts and feelings from the residents and businesses as to whether they felt that the CPZ was of use and served its purpose. Unfortunately, the results of the review from the residents was very, very low, so we didn't really get much of a response back from the residents. In fact, it was so low that we felt that there was no need for further change. However, in 2019, we did a further review just to establish whether there was any further changes that were required and if there was any changes in thought, and maybe conjure up some more information from the residents. So once again, the results were extremely poor, and it was felt that we couldn't really make any major changes to the CPZ because there was insufficient evidence to justify a change. However, it was decided at the time that there was a need for an improvement to the scheme that would enhance parking arrangements, because it was quite clear that the CPZ was causing some issues with the parking, and that was considered to be the kind of key elements that we needed to introduce. So improve the parking, create more spaces, but leave the times, because the time element of it, we couldn't really change based on the amount of people that were responding to the consultation. So I'll just hand over to Amir, and Amir can then potentially answer some of the specific questions that you have and continue.
Yeah, sure. As Jacqueline said earlier, I mean, we did get very low responses, both 2018 and 2019. Both responses in 2019 with 3% and 4% to be exact. So based on those very low response rate, we couldn't really recommend, or at the time the officers couldn't recommend any changes to the operational times. If I can say about the improvement we made recently, is really we try to improve the capacity of the parking bays in the area, where we actually had to extend the weighted restrictions at some junctions to improve visibility and safety. We've done that. We created some footway parking to get a better kind of width on the road, so it would be better for vehicles to pass. So these are the changes we made. In terms of splitting the zone into smaller, we could consider that, but obviously we need a petition from not just one or two streets from the area. The inner zone potentially we could create near the shops, perhaps. But we need to consult with the whole of the area. So we can't just concentrate because it's one CPZ, sort of north and south. We need to consult with the whole area, and we need to establish the support that we receive. Hopefully we will get support, but really it relies on residents to respond to the consultations. Please.
Can I?
We'll take questions in a minute. Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Grau.
Yeah. Jacqueline, the issue is quite serious now with the new development, with the barracks and all that, and the issue is getting really, really bad. All we need to do is, can we bypass that consultation and take a decision? I'm sure the other councillors have done that. And the reason is, if you do a consultation in the wide area again, you'll get the same result. Either do a consultation in those roads only, or bypass it and see how it goes. I mean, the petition has been done in the past. I'm pretty sure the petition has been done in the past, but nothing happened because of the consultation. And if you do a consultation again, it'll be the same result, I can assure you.
So why, as a resident, why do you think that the results are so poor, the percentage of results are so poor for the...
Yeah, if you're going to get a mic, though. If you can.
Thank you. Hi, I've got a letter. I've printed out an email that I sent in 2019 concerning the decision to shelve the creation of a two-tier CPZ in Hounslow North, which I'm very happy. I've done a copy. I'm very happy to pass it on. A number of things, really. When you said that the zone was created in 1995, it was then, and I think it included only a few roads around the very central area of Hounslow. It was expanded enormously in 2015, which wasn't mentioned, and it went as far as places, as far as Isleworth, actually, which counted as Hounslow Central, which is kind of ridiculous, and almost as far as Hounslow West. When they did the consultation, it was very flawed because the people who lived as far as Springgrove were consulted, and at the other, so they were consulting people who were not affected by the build-up of traffic in Hounslow Central. People who lived in local streets very centrally were very badly affected, but people living in Springgrove could come and actually park in Hounslow Central and get the benefit of parking there. The consultations themselves were also flawed in other ways. Some roads weren't included, which should have been included. A lot of roads were included, which should have been excluded. But it was decided that 2 zones would be created. The council sat on it for a year and then got back to us and said, we've changed our mind. And then another survey was done. And again, it was flawed. You know, I counted up the number of houses on Alexandra Road. There were 65 properties, but they said they'd sent out 110 consultations. It was just very, very flawed. And I'm not sure why Hounslow can't make a common sense decision on this, as other councils seem to do it. I've looked at areas of Ealing, Richmond, look at the central inner core, even Chiswick actually in Brentford. They've managed to create small zones in the very centre. I'm sure they haven't done consultations. And I think another consultation will be a complete waste of time and just putting off a decision.
Well, could I just say about the hours you were saying about not increasing the hours? I mean, that's a big part of the problem, really, because from Saturday, 12 o'clock, well, I live in Holly Road in Hounslow, and it's very difficult to get parked. If you go out shopping and come back, chances are you won't find a parking place down your road because people from the who want to use the high street can park there for free rather than parking in one of your pay and display parking bays. So, you know, it does need to happen. And as Joe just said, you know, in areas in Brentford and in Chiswick, the hours are extended, and it makes sense to extend it while the shops are open, and people will just come and park there for free, you know, and you're losing out on revenue as a result. Because a lot of residents as well who, you know, work all week and then will park after 6 o'clock, you know, when they come home, and then they'll move their car Saturday morning and then come back. Those people have got no incentive to get parking permits. So, you know, we just feel like it's a win-win for the council, and it would be a win-win for us as well, because, you know, we pay for our parking permits, you know, and lose our places.
Well, can I respond to that? So I think, bearing in mind that I wasn't here at the time and neither was Amir, I'm taking on board all the things that you've said and some of the flaws that you've identified. I'm going to certainly take that away and consider smaller zones and the options that you suggested, and we'll come back with potentially a proposal for what we'll do with that. So I'm going to take that forward and we'll suggest it. And see
the consultation of board councillors.
Of course.
Thank you. Councillor Junu, and then.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. We received the email from one of our residents who lives on Glenwood Road. Actually, he was complaining about the abuse of parking restriction on CPZ area. They have written to council, sent a petition. They've been promised there will be a survey done, and 2 to 3 years on, nothing has been done. Furthermore, they recently has experienced our enforcement officers parking on the street, leaving the car there, taking their spaces. It's making the matter worse. So he wanted to know whether we're going to have any survey done anytime soon.
As I explained earlier, I mean, we can carry out survey fairly quickly, very soon, but we need a petition. We need a request in writing. That is council's policy. And just to mention, I have actually worked with, 4 other local authorities, and the policies they have is exactly the same as in Hounslow, so there's no different. So in terms of consultations, you're saying just carry on and make the changes. Part of the statutory process, we need to have a cabinet report or chief officer's decision in order to make the statutory, make the traffic order, and we need the statement of reason. That is the legal process, so we have to carry out consultations. And we cannot make any changes without consultation.
According to him, they have complained, also sent the petition to the council. No response been given to them.
I'm not aware of that recent petition. I'm not aware of the recent petition.
I think it was done 3 years back. He said about 2 3.
Yeah, hence we carried out the consultation in 2019. That was the last. Yeah, we can.
We certainly can look at it, and that's the key thing I want to take away for you is that we will certainly look into it further. The second part about the parking in regards to the enforcement officers parking in the bays themselves. That's not normal practice. However, there is a requirement sometimes to allow the CEOs in the course of their duties to be able to park just to do the enforcement. So they won't be parking and doing their beats. They're there to do the enforcement, get back into the cars and go to the next location. So they're usually for a very short period of time, so it shouldn't have any impact on taking up parking spaces.
Car there, putting their badge numbers so they don't got the tickets and living there for a long time. So that was his concern.
Badge numbers?
I mean, probably their numbers on the windscreen so they don't get ticket from their colleagues, the enforcement officers. So basically saying that they're also taking our parking spaces when we are already struggling with it.
Okay. Well, bearing in mind that a majority of them are walking, but if you have any evidence, please bring it to my attention. I will personally take that up and investigate that because that's not appropriate. Thank you.
Chair, with permission, just to clarify, if members want to send a petition with 10 petitioners to us, we can proceed with consultation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Councillor Grower.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, as the lady said, that to extend hours, just around the closest roads of the town centre, do you still need a consultation for that, or can you do that under delegated decisions?
We still require consultation.
I'm sorry, it's not going to work, believe me. I think the petition is a good thing. If the resident can do a petition, and I'm sure I can bring it to the next time there's a group and the council, we have to bypass that somehow, otherwise we'll never get this done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Councillor Grawal.
I was just going to move on as well. If you want to let the resident ask this. Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
I live Hounslow East on the High Street. There is no parking. To load, unload groceries, for deliveries, for nothing. There is nothing allowed for the High Street. And the recent publication of Hounslow's effort about the infrastructure in Hounslow, with all new apartments going up and down the High Street in both ways, parking is not mentioned once. I've got a park over a quarter of a mile away in North Drive from where I live to park a car. I had a gentleman the other day who was delivering some stuff to me and parked in a loading bay, and he got fined for being there, for going up the stairs, coming back down in 10 minutes, and the 40 minutes was adequate on the loading bay, and the parking attendant said, excuse me, a judge told me I can only let you park there for 10 minutes because you're a private car, you're not a commercial vehicle in doing it, and issued him with a ticket, which we're appealing. I've got a blue badge, I applied for a blue badge to do it, and the answer came back absolutely negative, Now, I've lived on the High Street for 40 years. There is no allowances for a lot of people who live on the High Street just to take groceries in, load and unload. Not Not to sort of abuse parking, not to do anything like that. You got nothing, and it's fallen on deaf ears for all that length of time, regardless who was ever in charge. Why do you not consider people who actually live on the high street, and there's an awful lot, and there's going to be an awful lot more in doing it in that, you know? So why are we marginalised just because we live on the high street? Why don't you allow for a disabled driver, blue badge effort, to be able to park reasonably where they live? In Hounslow. I live adjacent to Lawrence Road, which leads into Prince Regent Road around about that, just to give you the picture of that. So I would like you to address that. I mean, it's all very well technically about contacting people and having consultations and that. Real people, real lives, real difficulties at the time in doing that. So I'd like you to address that, or what you may be able to do immediately rather than consultation-wise. Thank you.
First of all, I'll talk about the blue badge, because you said that you applied for a blue badge and it was rejected. I'm hoping that in the process of you applying for the blue badge, that you had an explanation as to the reason why your blue badge was rejected. Oh, you have got a blue badge. It was, it's a
parking space.
Oh, it's a disabled parking bay.
Yeah, they won't give me a disabled parking space.
Right, okay.
There are none around me.
Right, okay. So, go on, that's...
Could you email me your details, and I will look at why have you been rejected for the disabled parking bay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have been rejected for it, and the rejection came within 3 days, by the way.
Okay, I mean, I can only assume it would have been due to the location of the bay, maybe on the high street, which there is a high demand on kind of other road users.
Yeah, but I've got Lawrence Road, Prince Regent Road around the back of me. That leads into where I live. Okay. So I'm not asking for the high street.
Okay.
There are 2 places, by the way, just off the high street that were marked for disabled. The markings are there for disabled. But Hounslow Council put a barrier there from the Hamworth Road, and they put a barrier there so that nobody could actually park there.
Okay, I really need you to email me your location.
Well, I need your details to do that.
Okay, I'll provide that.
Thank you. If you can get the details at the end. I'm going to take one more question before we move on from the... Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I'll come to you. Please wait for the mic. Thank you.
I know it's very short of time. I have a question regarding the e-bikes.
This is for parking. The line bike, as I mentioned before, the line bike representative is here. If you want to wait till any other business towards about 8:55 to 9 o'clock, I'll have him. He'll answer any questions.
Yes, but that is also, they have also what really has happened because of this e-bike.
He sat directly in front of you, the representative. So any question you have, you can...
The residents, so they have taken over the parking bay, so residents doesn't have a parking area?
So maybe we can hold that question, and when line bikes have their slot, then you can answer that.
I hope so.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to take one last question from the gentleman. Sorry, can you wait for the mic, please? And I was...
Does this parking and CPZ arrangement extend to Gresham Road?
Not as far as I'm aware.
All right.
Thank you. The gentleman right next to you, if you want to pass him the mic, please. Thank you.
I'm Raj Singh. I'm a GP in Hounslow for last 35 years. We are 5 doctors' practice. Like under other London boroughs, you have got parking for doctors. What I'm requesting, at least 2 or 3 doctors parking on the road. Otherwise, we have got no parking for doctors there. I mean, other London boroughs, they all have near the surgeries, 1 or 2 car parking or 3. We are 5 doctors. So all I'm asking 3 or possibly at least 2 parking. That I'm in Clifford Road, Hounslow West. Clifford Road surgery in Hounslow West. I've got an application as well I can hand over if that is easier.
Okay, we'll take that away and we'll review it and establish whether there's a possibility for
Yeah, and I also would like to thank for the patients parking. Really, it has helped. I requested for last 2 years I have been requesting, and that has happened.
Excellent.
Because what was happening, the commuters, they used to park at 7 o'clock near the surgery, and people like disabled, ill people, young mothers with young children, they were not getting any parking, and they had to walk long way to come to the surgery. So that has been done, and I'm very thankful about that.
Okay.
But I'm requesting for 2 or 3 parking for doctors, please.
Right, okay, we'll take that one away.
Thank you.
Speak to us afterwards. I'll get your details and we'll communicate directly with one another.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you to Jacqueline and Amir for answering these questions. I'm sure they'll be around at the end if anyone's got any more questions, but we will have to move on. So thank you guys for coming.
Thanks.
Moving on to agenda item number 7. Can we please have Matthew and Claire from Community Solutions, who will be presenting Hounslow Community and Family Hubs.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and it's really good to be here. We've got a really super quick, I promise, presentation about the community and family hubs, just to give you an overview. And then there'll be a little interactive session so that you can give your input, because we're looking to open a community hub right here in Hounslow. So it's really good to get your feedback. So just moving on really quickly. So I don't know about you, but I really quite like doing things online. I like to go on Uber Eats and click up and have a little takeaway delivered in 15 minutes. I like to, say, pay my parking ticket online, that kind of thing. But I definitely don't want to do everything online. And everything shouldn't be online. We need to make sure that we have face-to-face services available for people. And that's what this is all about. We want to make sure that you have the services that you need to access in your local area. We want to make sure that you get the very best opportunity to access those services that you're already paying for, that we are already providing. And it's about bringing them closer to you so that you can get access to them. So maybe I'm worried about my elderly mum and her eyesight is going and I need some advice and I want to know what support I can get for her. Maybe I've got a credit card and I've got in a bit of a muddle with my finances and I need to get some debt support. Maybe I've been made redundant and my CV isn't up to date and I'm having a panic about what I'm going to do about my next job. There are all sorts of situations where you don't want to do it online and you want to walk into somewhere and you want to get a welcome. You want somebody to show you some empathy. You want somebody to listen to you, to sit down, to hear what you're saying, and to connect you with the services that you need. And this is what we're trying to do with the community hubs and the family hubs across Hounslow. So we're starting, and we've already started in Feltham. Let me move on. So we opened the first of our community hubs in Feltham Assembly Hall, using an asset that we already had, a building that we already had. And it was about bringing that building back into life and making sure that we're making the very best use of it. It's sitting there. Why not make sure that we are there and we're delivering those services? So we opened up, we did a soft launch at the beginning of June, and we're building up to having a fully functioning launch at the end of September. We've got between 12 and 15 services on site in Feltham Assembly Hall, and there's an opportunity for people to come down there and to connect with all sorts of different services. They aren't just council services. We are working with our partners. We've got, for example, in Feltham, we've got the RNIB, who have eye care liaison officers who can help people who have sight loss. We have revenue and benefits. We have each counselling and support. We have all sorts of different organisations that we're working with, and we want to make sure that we're extending that to locations across the borough so that it is genuinely accessible to everyone. I'm going to hand over to Matt now, who's going to talk a bit more about the location in Hounslow.
Good evening. So the community hub, it's first coming to the ground floor of Hounslow House. And we're looking for other sites, making the best use of council and partner assets. So we wanted to talk to you tonight a bit about the ground floor at Hounslow House. You may have noticed that we've started to do more activity down there. We've had digital inclusion events where you could learn new digital skills, apply to get free devices if you are from a low-income family or a low-income individual. We've also had events run by Google to help people learn new skills. We've had jobs fairs, we've had cost of living marketplaces involving a wide range of different organisations, council teams, Citizens Advice and others to help people with the cost of living. So we've been activating the space down there, but we're really very aware that there's a lot more to do, and we would like your ideas really to help shape this. It's about making the best of these assets that we've got, but also opening them up so they're more accessible for you, and that you're not passed from pillar to post, but you can get the answers that you need speaking to someone face to face to have an alternative to an online form. It may be that we help you do that online form. If you want to do that, we can show you how to do these things for the first time, but it's about having one place that you can access the services. We're also very aware that at the moment it's not a particularly friendly place to come, and we want to change that, and we want to make it more accessible, more welcoming, more inclusive. So here are some of the pictures of what it's like now, and we're keen to change that. There's obviously a lot of things that are good. It's one of the most well-used libraries on this side of London. It's we've got adult education classrooms, which are going to be increased in terms of the number of courses and the spaces that you can access. The first part of this is the Family Hub, which has already been introduced, and my colleague is going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then we're going to open it up for ideas and discussion about what you'd like to see in the Community Hub downstairs.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, everyone. Let me make sure I can actually use this. Yeah, okay. Good evening, everyone, and I'm grateful for your time this evening. Family Hubs is following exactly the same ethos as outlined under Community Hubs. But it is a DFE initiative, and it's grant funded by DFE and the Department for Health and Social Care. And it's targeting parents, carers, and children. So children and families. Families with children from 0 to 19 and up to 25 for special education needs and disability. And essentially, I'll describe Family Hubs as a one-stop shop. We have grant funding for a 3-year period. The period started April 2022 to March 2025. But a lot of the first year was really looking at the logistics and the groundwork to do with the Family Hubs. We had a soft launch of Family Hubs in June, and I'll come on to that. So Family Hubs is a place-based approach, basically creating a space environment where families can come in, people from pre-birth up to, as I said, children up to 19 years of age and 25 SEND, and be able to access universal services. So it can come into play, come in for leisure. You don't have to have particular needs. It's meant to be early help and prevention, able to network with each other. We know young parents like to be able to at least have some connection with each other to understand the problems they may be going through may not be unique to themselves. So Family Hubs are supposed to create those spaces. But at the same time, it's using a systems-based approach, and therefore, we are working with our partners, we are working with our health colleagues, we're working with the voluntary community sector to make sure that the services that are accessible and available are visible. Because sometimes the stories we hear from parents is that we didn't even know that the service existed in the first place, or they've been bounced from pillar to post as in trying to navigate too many services. To bring all of our partners under one roof, both physically and virtually, is the intent of Family Hubs. We are at the start of the journey, though. And so it's guided by three principles, really: access, connections, and relationships. Access is really what I was just talking about, making the services apparent and visible for parents and children and families to actually access. Connections is really making sure that the different stakeholders are connected. So health is not operating in isolation to social care, to voluntary community sector, and duplicating services and maybe missing services. So coming together on a systems basis, that's the connections. And relationships, really, to enable families to build relationships within the families, but also build relationships with professions, and professionals to build relationships with each other. So those are the guiding principles on which the family hubs are being established. And as I said, we've launched, there's a whole range of services in family hubs or that are aligned to family hubs. The main services that are funded by the DFE fall under 4 or 5 streams. Infant and breastfeeding is one of the funded streams. Home learning environment, early language, perinatal mental health, recognizing that obviously that has a direct implication on the child if the mother suffers from that, and parenting support, which is obviously very broad. But aligned to that, obviously, the DFE and the Department for Health know that people outside of looking after their children live regular lives as well. And this is where the connections with community hubs come into play. People may need access to both services. And so we're working closely together to ensure that that one-stop seamless experience happens. I won't go through the list of services. I just really want to highlight very quickly that we launched the 3 hubs in Hounslow in June. The 3 hubs are located, the Family Hub West is located in Alfkin, Feltham. Family Hub East is located in Brentford, what used to be the Children's Centre. And the Family Hub Central is located in Lambton. The Family Hub West has an access point in Feltham Library, so parents can go there to the library to go and read and be able to get information, advice, and guidance and support, as well with regards to accessing services within the family hubs or even accessing services within the community hubs as well. And there also is an access point here on the ground floor for Central, and for really, it's more not just for Central, but for anybody that comes through the door, because we do get more people coming here, not necessarily just those that live within the center of the borough. And there's an access point there downstairs, again, for information and advice. The principle of family hubs is not to just signpost. The principle of family hubs is actually to lead and guide and appoint. So when you speak to somebody, they will try as much as possible, wherever feasible, to get you an appointment within the family hub or in the community hub if an appointment system is being run for that particular service. Because signposting can be effective, but is not as effective as when you actually have a guided relationship. So that's the essence of family hubs in Hounslow. We are at the start of the journey. This is a co-production process. So we've established parent and carer panels, both for East, West, and Central. And we're asking the parents to actually guide us. Because in terms of the funding, we can't introduce new services unless they are replacing existing services. We're not going to get new budget streams. But the key thing is really an opportunity to review the services available with our parents, children, and family to be able to determine what they actually want and therefore tailor the service offering to their specific needs. So I would encourage you, if you have not heard of us before now, I would encourage you to either go on the website. We do have a web space there. Contact us, register your name. I would allocate you to a parent and carer panel if you want to join one. You don't have to be a parent and carer to have a view. You may have a view because you've had parents, you have had children previously anyway, or you've observed something in another borough. But we would encourage you because we need this to be a joint journey. So thank you for your time. And I'll hand over now to
Hi, everyone. So the Hounslow Community Hub is all about residents, so it's all about you, and we try to focus especially on resident needs, and we want to implement that within the design process of Hounslow Community Hub. So we want to take this opportunity to have a discussion. So we have 4 questions that we want you to think about. So what activities would you like to be able to do in a community hub? What would you like your local community hub to look and feel? And what is the best way for us to let you know what's going on? So I'm aware of time, but if we could have a few minutes to think about the 4 questions, and if you want, you can come up, and we've got pens and post-it notes. We can have a discussion about it, and our team is also around the room, so they can come to you with the post-it notes. And if you have anything to say or contribute, please feel free to.
Can I make a point now?
Yeah, you can make it now, yeah.
10 years ago, we had meetings here at the other place. Yep, when we were talking about combined services, and some of you may have been involved at the time. Butts Farm was going to be one of the areas that was going to be a community-type hub approach. The money didn't run out. We had all those changes taking place after 2010 when there was no money to do anything. And I'd want to be assured that, if you like, the money is there in Hounslow to keep this going, sustain this. Frankly, we've seen other boroughs having to cut things down to the bone. This is too important to start and not be able to carry through to its proper fulfilment.
I'm happy to come back on that one. I'm Matt Marr. I'm the Assistant Director in the Communities Division. So, yes, we want to be efficient and effective about how we deliver this, but a lot of this is about better using the council buildings, the halls, the facilities that we've got out there already that are underused, as you can see from Feltham Assembly Hall. It's also about shifting the working patterns of our teams from working from home or in Hounslow House to be place-based and closer to people. The family hubs are funded by government funding, as my colleague said, but actually this is more about shifting the resources and ensuring that we have a localised approach so that people have somebody, a council officer or a partner organisation commissioned by the council that they can speak to local to where they live.
Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, officers. I think it's really nice to see family hubs on here today. Chris, just from your point, Chris, it's just the Butts Farm was completely different. This one is that we're using the council buildings for our residents, and I think from Feltham Assembly Hall, where I have seen firsthand it's really working, and our team is working hard on this, and I'm sure we will be able to achieve what we need to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, I'm already familiar with your service, as I'm a carer, and so too is my friend. He runs a men's carers group within the borough. Something that we do have a mutual issue about is the age criteria that you have for send people. You quote up to the age of 25. We're trying to fight for the community that are post 25 that fall into the send community. There's nothing out there for them. So my question is, can we push that age group out of the way and not have a ceiling for the send community?
There should be, well, okay, there isn't. I'll take that on board. I'll take this back then, because beyond 25, they should really be following the adult social care services. There should be an offering in there. So if there's a specific gap in the service offer that you have, I would like to get the details and share it with my SRO, who actually straddles both children and adults.
Okay. Unfortunately, we can't just flick a switch with our send young people.
Yeah.
Once they hit 25, they don't just suddenly become adult.
Exactly.
And they don't have the same responsibilities either for that age, unfortunately. So there is a huge gap. And I suppose this is a plea, really,
Yeah.
To extend that as unlimited.
Okay, well, I think I take the plea on board, and I guess it's a question of how the budgets would be realigned, because I do expect that there's some service offering within the adults, and therefore what you're saying, though, is people may potentially be falling through the cracks because they're not being treated as adults and they're not being treated as children. So I'll get a bit more detail from you if you don't mind.
Okay, yes,
and then
absolutely.
I'll speak to my SRO and we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's just a lady in the front row. Then we'll move on to the last question.
I've got a question. I don't know who can answer this, because what I understand is Treaty Centre is going to change next year, and the Art Centre on the first floor is going to go. Is that right?
I don't think that's relevant to this discussion. But if you do have a question about that, I think you should contact your ward councillor after the event, and I'm sure they'll answer it for you. Thank you. We do have to move on, but can we do that at the end? Because I really want to give the Lime Bikes representative an opportunity. If you can just give us a minute, and we'll come to you at the end. If we could all give a round of applause to the Hounslow Community and Family Hubs for coming. Thank you very much. Moving on, I'm going to call Harry up from the Lime Bikes. He just wants to take a few minutes to talk about the Lime Bikes which you've all seen in the area.
Thank you, Councillor, and thanks everyone for taking the time to give me a platform to talk about Lime and the service we run in Hounslow. My name is Hal Stevenson. I'm Lime's Director of Policy for UK and Ireland. I have responsibility for managing our service in London and leading on external engagement across our boroughs, including Hounslow, where we recently launched an e-bike service. We're really pleased with how it's going. Since launching, we've done almost 50,000 trips per month. We've also had over 15,000 riders take a trip in Hounslow every month, and we estimate around 10% of those almost 50,000 trips per month are taking someone directly out of a car. And that's really important because we all need to be making transport decisions that help reduce congestion, improve air quality, and help fight climate change, which we know is such an important issue. We work very closely with officers, and we know that there are concerns from some residents around the scheme. That includes things like parking, antisocial behaviour, noise complaints. We are addressing those with officers. We have a standardised system of warnings and fines and bans for riders if they don't park in the dedicated bays, which is where the bikes are required to be left. And we've seen parking compliance really improve month on month, and we're now in a position where over 90% of trips are ending up in those designated bays. Of course, when you're already doing 50,000 trips a month, that's still too many bikes being left outside of those bays, but we're really pleased with the progress that we've been able to deliver in this short time. I know that, from attending these sessions, the most valuable thing is to open up the room for question and answer, and to be able to listen to your concerns or any questions you have. So very happy to hand over and take questions.
Can you please just raise your hand and somebody will bring a mic to you? I know, but please, I told you, all questions must come through the chair. Just raise your hand, the mics come to you, now you may ask your question. No, I do understand, but like I said at the beginning, all questions must come through the chair. So, thank you. No one's disrespecting you, madam, but I've requested you numerous times, all questions must come through the chair, meaning you have to put your hand, there's a form going on. So please raise your hand and I will come to you. I've never denied you of answering a question, nor will I. But please do respect the procedure we have in place and come through me, and then you may answer your question. That's what I request.
I understand, and I also respect what you are saying.
Thank you.
But at the same time, you give me the signal, that's the reason I spoke.
No problem. You may just if you want. No problem. Just if you want to ask your question, please. No. No problem. If you want to ask your question, and we'll carry on. No problem.
Yeah. You have already seen the evidence, as I have shown you on my mobile. So please make sure, if you cannot really implement what you are just saying, try to remove the bikes from the road, so at least people can park their car.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing those photos with me. They were examples of poor parking. Of course, when you've got 10% of trips ending outside of bays, you are going to have those examples, and we know that we need to improve things. Some of the photos you also showed me showed bikes tipped on their side or turned over, and often we see that's actually a result of non-user vandalism or antisocial behaviour. So you have a scenario in which a Lime rider cycles into Hounslow, leaves the bike in the dedicated bay, as they're supposed to, and then it's moved by someone who's not actually using the bike. They either push it over or maybe try and hack it. That's an issue we've been dealing with recently and are working with officers to address.
I have also shown you the photograph. The bike was parked right in the middle of the road. If any car was passing by, how their car supposed to park?
Yeah, that was
Or any children with the pushchair, or any wheelchair person, how they're supposed to pass by from the footpath and at the same time the middle of the road? That's my question to you.
That looked to be a really dangerous and antisocial incident. And because the way Lime works, you have to take a photo of how you've left your bike. It is unlikely that a paying user of Lime left the bike in that way. Rather, it was moved by someone who isn't using Lime and is behaving in an antisocial way.
This was stationary bike, because I can literally view if somebody is trying to misuse the bike or anything like that. And this bike was literally lifted from where they were parked in a bay or a little bit away from the bay, and they were placed in the middle of the road. So if you really see technically, they were not used, or they did not pay money or anything like that, or they were not scanned. So obviously you wouldn't have known. That's the reason I took the picture of it, just as evidence.
Well, exactly that. So that's the issue you have, is that actually when you see these really poor examples of where bikes are left, it's not a result of the 15,000 Hounslow residents and visitors who are using the service on a month-by-month basis. It's people who aren't using the service interfering with it or acting in an antisocial way. So someone taking a bike out of a parking bay and moving it into the middle of the road is a form of antisocial behaviour with potentially criminal consequences. So we work very closely with the Safer Communities team, we work with the police, we work with local schools to try and educate and enforce against that type of behaviour.
Let's hope.
Thank
it
you.
works.
Moving on. Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming down today, answering our questions, and I think it's really helpful sometime. I'm actually slightly confused that what does according to what I have read, the rule says if the bike has been reported left on pavement or hacked or anything, I think it's 2-hour slots. You have to move it back.
Yes.
Your team has the time to move it back into the original space, yeah?
Yeah, so we have over 100 people all over London, and their job is to make sure that when bikes are left inconsiderately or left out of a bay location, they're moved back into the bays. So we have a team working across Hounslow on that 24/7.
Right, but within Hounslow Heath, there was one bike reported this morning, vandalised. Someone has put the paint all around it. That was reported, I think, this morning, and nothing has happened to it until today when I was coming in. And at the same time, maybe it's just within central part of it. I don't know what will happen when we start next Monday at the West End of the borough. But currently, personally, whatever I have logged, maybe one or two bikes I have seen going on place regularly, but others are exactly the same space. On the other end, when someone hacks the bike, what do you do about it? Because you have no one to find them. You have no one to find them. And then we say it's antisocial behaviour, especially if we've taken a bay in front of the residents. I think it's a job of Lime, your job as an organisation, to kind of be on top of it where you think ASB is happening or near schools. I'm actually seeing school children's using the Lime bikes. They're only 13. I stopped a child 3 weeks ago, and I have reported this to our lead member as well, and we've had a very lengthy conversation about this. I think it's really, really extremely important that if there is anything you think we can do, I'm happy to do that. But in my ward, I'm not seeing any difference at the moment.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. It's our responsibility to manage our fleet. So you're right, when we see antisocial behaviour, we collect data on it, we share that with the police. If you talk about how we engage with schools, I've attended school assemblies to talk to the children about the legal and safety risks of trying to use Lime bikes when you're not the required age. And we're also working really closely with Hounslow's officer team. So working closely with Jefferson, working closely with Alex, making sure that when issues are raised, we're dealing with them as quickly as possible. And on the hacking point specifically, we're rolling out a hardware fix over the next 6 to 8 weeks that will prevent the issue from taking place further. So we should see a big reduction in that type of antisocial behaviour.
Right, thank you. And do you think if, as a councillor for my ward, request you data that how many were hacked in my ward, would you be able to provide that?
So what we've shared with officers at the moment is a heat map of where hacking is taking place most significantly across the borough. So I'm sure we could share a version of that to be distributed to ward councillors.
I think that'd be helpful if we can have that via Jefferson. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Said.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of quick things, really. One was that suddenly at the end of my road, I live in Hounslow West, so there were bicycles all over the place in the last couple of weeks, which I have reported on Fix My Street. And one morning I just saw a parking bay. So were they introduced simply because of the complaints, or had that been in the plan anyway to, at the end of roads, to have these parking these bays? The other thing is, like you said, I have seen children, I go to work in the morning and I've seen quite a few people using them and they've been abandoned. Why isn't there some sort of a locking system whereby if you have not paid or however it works, you are unable to move, it should be just locked.
Yeah.
And also, just to reiterate what Councillor Chowdhury said, I have been reporting them, and I know for a fact that they have been there for a couple of days rather than a couple of hours. So, thank you.
So, to your first point around the bay network, we worked with the council to implement that. We used data based on where trips were ending prior to the service being formally launched, and also looked at a range of factors in terms of the availability and density of the parking. When you require users to park in specific locations, unless you can provide enough parking, the service won't be functional to use. If I have to walk 10 minutes from my house to pick up a bike in a bay and 10 minutes from the bay to go to my place of work, you're not going to use the service because an average line bike ride is probably only about 12 minutes. So if you've got to walk 20 minutes on top of that, it's not a functional mode of transport. So we worked really hard with the officers to put in place that bay network. It's a trial service, it's a pilot. We are getting feedback on those locations, and we're working with officers to address that feedback and look at other options if needed. To your point around bike locking and bike hacking, absolutely. So we do have locks on the bike. If you've seen the bike hacking take place, you'll hear that clicking noise. What that is the lock partially engaged or broken, and that's a result of criminal or antisocial behavior that's leading to that. So the hardware is there, we're upgrading it, adding additional safeguards to prevent it, and that will be in place, like I say, in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Your final question was around retrieval times. So we share very detailed data with officers on our retrieval times, including the fastest retrieval and the longest retrieval, and then also the average retrieval. And we can look at how we can share that information more widely.
Thank you. I'm going to take 2 more questions, one from Councillor Kiani.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Can I ask you that you said, that all the bikes are removed in 2 hours. I live in front of the Heathland School, and every day, I have got the photographs, every day 3 to 4 bikes are parked on Granville Avenue, and they are left for days, not for hours, for days. And on Staines Road, I can give you at least 15 to 20 bikes. Every day they are abandoned there. And I've seen children are riding those bikes. So I don't know how they can ride those bikes, and how can they, given the money to or credit card, to use that credit card and take that bike. It's frustrating.
I completely understand the frustration. The issue with underage riding is linked to bike hacking. You have to use and pay for a line. You have to create an account. You have to say you're over the age of 18. You have to upload debit or credit card payments. So when we've introduced this hardware fix, like I say, within the next 6 to 8 weeks, that hacking and the issues associated with it will be significantly reduced.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Councillor Omer. Then I'll come to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to highlight that over the past few months, you'd say, there's been a lot of negative feedback related to the bikes. And particularly, and I think having these bikes being, let's say, stranded on the streets or just being not well, let's just say, maintained or organized in their delegated positions, it just makes it very difficult to try to, let's just say, please the residents, to assure them that this is a good idea. I mean, I think you said there's about 200 or so people that you've got on across London maintaining these, and I think just across Hounslow or the borough of Hounslow, I'm assuming you got more than 50 or so of these locations, bike locations. So would you say, 50 just in Hounslow plus whatever the other number of boroughs you have across London, would you say 200 people that you've got maintaining these are sufficient? Because obviously from the feedback that you're getting from the residents and the councillors, it doesn't seem like 200 is what's required.
So we continue to grow our out-of-warehouse team. So we recently launched in Hounslow 2 or 3 months ago, and as a result of that, we've hired new people into the team, particularly local people who understand the area and understand where bikes are being left and where we might be finding issues. And we also supplement that team by working with local logistics partners as well, particularly during summer. You get increased usage. That means that even if you've got, like I say, 90% of trips ending in bays, that 10% that aren't is still too high a number, so we need more people to manage it. So we're always looking at how we can improve. We're pleased with how the service is going, but we understand the concerns that are being raised, and we're working closely with officers to address them, and that includes issues around parking and also retrieval times.
Thank you. Councillor Grohl, and then
Thank you.
I'll come to
Very similar question to what Councillor Mayor asked. You say you're very pleased with what's happening. Now, supposing, just for example, if nobody reported where these bikes were, like one was in an alley on a fence, would you believe it, just hanging off a fence? And I reported that, but just supposing nobody reports these bikes wherever they're dumped, how do you find them? How many people have you got looking around? You said you have 200, but what do? Do they go into alleys, or do they just drive around? Do they pick them up in a truck? Do they ride them away? How do you find your bikes, basically?
Of course. So all of the bikes have very accurate GPS technology that allows us to track where they've been left. That includes if they've been left in antisocial positions or if they've been vandalized. When you're providing that example of a bike on a fence or put somewhere it shouldn't, it's important, I think, to remember that that isn't a user that's done that. People that use the service value the service the bikes provide, and they don't treat them in that way. So it's important. Of course, we have to look at where the concerns are coming from and address them, but equally, whatever service you operate, you're going to have a small minority of people that want to behave in an antisocial way towards it. And yes, we need better safeguards and preventative measures to stop that, but it shouldn't take away from the benefits the service is providing. And like I say, almost 50,000 trips a month, 15,000 registered users taking trips every month, 10% of those 50,000 trips we estimate taking people out of cars based on London-specific rider polling. So there is really good data and it's a good start, but obviously there are concerns and we're working with officers to address those.
Very quickly, Chair, through you. You have to improve your tracking system. The one we're talking about, there are 2 bikes on the fence in the Lambton Park. They were there for 3 days. We reported it, and they were still there for a couple of days after that. So you have to really improve the tracking or how to collect them.
Of course, and when you have bikes left in those types of strange positions, it can sometimes be harder for our team to track them down because they're not expecting the bike to be left there. But we're not always going to get it right. There's always going to be examples where we're not hitting the targets we want to hit. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to get this type of feedback, so I can take that away and take it to the operations team, and we can work on it and learn from it.
Thank you. I think there's a few residents. There's one in the middle row, and then I'll come to you, and then.
Do you know where the hacked or damaged bikes are?
Yes, so we have GPS data that shows us where the hack took place and then where the bike is left following the end of that hack trip. What we don't have is the through route. So we can't see the route they took, but we can see where they left the bike.
So why is it taking you such a long time to actually deal with it? Because all I know is wherever I move, I hear this clicking noise. From what you described, it is a hacked or broken bike.
Yep.
This is repeated because I've seen youngsters, one moving to the next one and passing the bike again. Now, if you know where they are, what do you do about it? That's number one. Number two, if you do know about it, to me it appears that you really rely, and what you've said here, reported, you are asking the public to do your job.
So your first point around what do we do about it? If someone hacks a bike, that is a criminal act. So what we've done is we've shared briefings with all local police teams across London, including in Hounslow, which shows them how to recognise what a hacked bike sounds like, how to challenge someone that's doing it in terms of making them show the Lime app and showing that it's not actually on a trip, and then also a statement of the damage it causes in terms of the wear and tear on the parts, the required mechanic time it takes to go and retrieve the bike and fix it, and they're able to then prosecute against it. We do work within our teams on how we would intervene if we see it taking place, but ultimately it is a form of criminal activity, and therefore we want to work with the police on it. We also, because of the age range where it's taking place, it's really important to recognise that when someone does this to a bike, they don't get the electric assist from the vehicle. It's not pleasurable to ride in the same way that if you're paying for a Lime bike. So we do tend to only see it amongst children of a school age. So we're working very closely with schools. We've sent letters out across London to schools so they understand and can recognise what bike hacking looks like. And we've also presented directly to schools at assemblies, including in Hounslow.
Hi. In terms of bike parking locations, I see that some locations are put in a very dangerous area. For example, Cromwell Road, as some of us are aware, where it's just parked on the bend and the cars can't see it and it makes the road very narrow. What are you doing about that? Thank you.
That might be one for Jefferson, because the council have the final say on bay location.
Thank you very much for that question. The guiding principles. So my name is Jefferson Walker, I'm the Assistant Director for Traffic, Transport and Parking. The guiding principles around where we locate the bike bays is one, visibility, safety, of course, but also prominence. So they have to be in a prominent location. They have to be visible to potential users. And of course, ultimately, they have to be safe. And for the most part, the bike bays are located in places where you would normally have cars. So we're not creating new places. It's basically repurposing existing parking bays for parking bikes, basically. So the safety factor from that point of view is secure. So at a junction, you would have a reasonable distance between the junction itself to where the bike parking bay is. Now, I appreciate by introducing a parking bay or repurposing a parking bay that's normally used for vehicles, for bikes, it is a change to the layout. It is a change to the look of the road. But that's something that people will, I think, with time, get accustomed to. But in itself, if you're asking me, have we made the roads unsafe as a result of introducing bike parking bays? The answer is no. But is it a change to the layout of the road? Absolutely it is. And people will have to understand that change. And like any other change on the road network, it will take time, but people will get accustomed to it.
Thank you. I think we're going to take one final question from the lady in the end, and then we'll conclude.
Hello. My question is similar to yours. Where I live, an entrance to an estate, the bike park is on the left, and then there's one other lane where both cars are passing, but it's a hazard, it causes traffic congestion, and plus children. There's a school nearby where they're crossing, so it is a hazard. I don't know how somebody would put a bike park there. So I was just curious how you come, what processes you use to put these bike parks there. I know it's a space for a car and there's no parking restrictions there, but it's a hazard because you normally have to wait on one side, give way, because the road is so narrow and it's right at the edge of the road going onto a main road. So it is a hazard for children, for mums, and I'm a driver, so it's causing hazard coming into the estate. So if it was put further down, I think, because it's right at the end of the road, coming in and out, if it was probably put further down, it would probably be a little bit safer. So, and I've seen that on a number of roads, so I do worry about how you go about putting these bike parks.
Thank you very much for that question, and that's very useful feedback. If you could let us know about that specific location, we're happy to look into it to see if there's a need for that to be repurposed. This is a trial, and I think we have to keep reminding residents that this is a trial. It's not set in stone. Where there is feedback that's received, such as yours, we will of course take that on board and see where we can make, if there's a need for changes. We don't, whilst we try as much as possible to make sure we find the most suitable, the safest locations, we are in no doubt that there'll be one or two places perhaps where it's not quite easy to achieve those objectives, and we will rely on feedback from residents and councillors, of course, and where there is a need for change, we will absolutely make those changes.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry, for answering all these questions. You got one more? Yes. Just last one of the night.
I'm probably not talking for all the bays, but you've put up these black bollards that have a tiny little strip of reflective tape on them. That's fine in the daytime. However, at night, they blend in with the background. And the problem arises, and as I've noticed over the last couple of days, that some of these bays that aren't full with bikes, that pole is more or less sticking up in the middle of the road, and nobody can see them, and it's only a matter of time before a motorist is going to hit one of those posts. I just wonder what the implications of that will be. Who's responsible? The liability behind that, is that Lime or is that the council?
Thank you, sir. That's a feedback we have received a few times now. Again, because it's a trial, not in set in stone, we can always make changes where they are needed. The bollards are under review. We will review that because of the number of feedback we have received, such as yours, not just from this area, but also across the borough. So we'll review that. And if we can't find a suitable alternative to those ones, then we will just have to let them go. But that is under review.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes our meeting for tonight. Can I just remind all the audience two things? One, there's feedback forms on your chairs, if you could fill them out. And two, Claire and Matthew's team from the Hounslow Community and Family Hubs are still here. If anybody has any suggestions, if you could please just go up to the front and put a post. And thank you, Harry, for answering the questions. I think that's it. The date of the next scheduled meeting is Monday, 4th December 2023, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you.